I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. I'm dressed in the penguin suit because I'm attending the Al Smith dinner where Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump will be speaking this evening. You'll see split-screen scenes from that throughout this hour. People arriving, the speeches are later on. The dinner honors the first Catholic ever to run for president, Al Smith, who lost to Herbert Hoover in 1928. Now let's get to the third and last presidential debate in 2016. And that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. One suggestion, put aside, please, your emotions for a moment so you can better absorb this debate analysis because a lot of stuff coming at you. The headline is both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump exposed themselves politically last night. American voters who are paying attention now know exactly where the candidates stand. The back and forth on abortion is the best example.
If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me.
I do not think the United States government should be stepping in and making those most personal of decisions. So you can regulate if you are doing so with the life and the health of the mother taken into account.
Now, it's somewhat shocking, and I mean that, shocking, that Hillary Clinton would support late-term partial birth abortion, citing the health of the mother. As we saw in Kansas and in Pennsylvania, the health of the mother could be anything. There are corrupt doctors who will abort for money on the most flimsy of physical excuses. In a humane country, the unborn must be protected to some extent by the government. Otherwise, we don't have any moral authority on anything. Next up, illegal immigration.
Is that your dream, open borders?
Well, if you went on to read the rest of the sentence, I was talking about energy. We trade more energy with our neighbors than we trade with the rest of the world combined.
Chris Wallace citing the WikiLeaks hack showing Secretary Clinton saying to a bunch of Brazilian bankers, quote, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders sometime in the future with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it," unquote. So this isn't just about energy, Mrs. Secretary. It's about what the EU does. Mrs. Clinton supports people moving freely in this hemisphere as they do right now in Western Europe. That is the truth. Now we devolve and get into how the candidates really feel about each other.
Look, Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit that the Russians.
No, puppets all over the world are outraged, and they have a right to be. Then things got even worse. Here's Clinton on Trump.
It's not one thing. This is a pattern, divisiveness of a very dark and in many ways dangerous vision of our country, where he incites violence, where he applauds people who are pushing and pulling and punching at his rallies. That is not who America is.
It's clear Hillary Clinton despises Donald Trump and vice versa.
She shouldn't be allowed to run. She's guilty of a very, very serious crime. She should not be allowed to run. And just in that respect, I say it's rigged, because she should never have been allowed to run for the presidency based on what she did with emails and so many other things.
Finally, Donald Trump made a tactical mistake by continuing to suggest the election may be rigged. That may play well with Trump's base, but he needs to win over independents and people who are skeptical of him.
I want to ask you here on the stage tonight, do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely, sir, that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time.
Now, that statement dominated news headlines today, wiping out all the political points last night, giving the media yet another hammer to pound Trump into pudding. Talking Points does not understand why Donald Trump does not understand that stuff like that hurts him. He clarified today in Ohio.
Of course, I would accept a clear election result, but I would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result.
Well, that's what he should have said last night, and that would have knocked it out of page one. Summing up, nobody won the debate, so Hillary Clinton will likely maintain her substantial lead. And that's the memo. Now for the top story reaction, joining us from Lancaster, New York, Congressman Chris Collins, an early and strong supporter of Donald Trump. So am I making any mistakes in the talking points, Congressman?
No, Bill, I think you've hit it very clearly, and I would just add, I would give Hillary Clinton some style points as a career politician who's debated most of her life. I would give Donald Trump substance points on getting across, the issues on the Supreme Court, certainly the issue with the borders, the differences between he and Hillary on trade. He had some great style points, or Hillary had the style points, he had the substance points, but I agreed by not saying he would accept unilaterally the results of the election that did become today's headlines for the liberal press. I was a little bit dismayed at that
because his statement
but it
today
happened. We'll move beyond it. But
his statement today in Ohio was a statement he should have gave last night. I mean, and that would have just negated all that, and then people could have gone back to, okay, look, here's what Trump feels about abortion, here's what he feels about immigration, here's what Secretary Clinton, and then make their decision. Now, I predict that Clinton will maintain a 6 or 7% lead across the country. New York's already done. It's 25%. Clinton is ahead here, so Trump's not going to carry his home state. In the House, where you sit, are people worried the Democrats may take the majority back?
Not in the House, no. We've always known, just based on the fact that we had 247 seats, a margin of 59 members, the largest since 1928, we would tend to lose 7 or 8, even 10 seats this time. And I think it will be in that number that we will return with 230, 235 members, still a very substantial lead. Because the math just doesn't work.
Yeah, because that's the only,
seats.
If the Senate goes Democrat, and that's a big if, but the only constraint on Hillary Clinton carrying on President Obama's policies and maybe even expanding into single-payer health care would be the House. Now, when you see a candidate like Donald Trump, who has basically stuck to his guns. I mean, if you don't like him, that's fine, but you have to admit the guy's not a phony. I mean, he puts himself out there in awkward positions. Another politician would never in a million years do that. But I don't know if the American people, I don't know if they feel easy with him. And that's what he had to do in the 3 debates, is make it easier for them to vote for him. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but I think the difference between status quo under Hillary Clinton, the change agent that Donald Trump is, putting America first, I can tell you the energy is through the roof from his supporters. Everywhere I went today. No doubt.
His supporters are rabid, and that's what they're counting on, that there'll be a lot of people vote for Donald Trump who, A, won't tell the pollsters they won't vote for him, and B, haven't voted before, that the voting patterns will be upended.
Yeah.
But the demographics, particularly out west, they don't show that. I mean, there's a lot of Hispanic voters, new Hispanic voters out there, and it's a tough road. You want to make a prediction of what's going to happen on November 8th?
Oh, I think Donald Trump wins. He has to take Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, and then either Pennsylvania or Nevada, Iowa, and New Hampshire. I do believe Donald Trump is going to be our next president because as the change agent, and much like the Brexit vote, there's a lot of undercover voters that are voting for Donald Trump. He has the energy, and the WikiLeaks is really disappointing to the Bernie Sanders supporters. I think they're more likely to stay home because they're showing the two faces and how disingenuous Hillary Clinton really is. So there's no energy in her campaign. So, Bill, I think it's a turnout election, and I think the turnout and energy behind Donald will carry the day November 8th.
All right, Congressman, we appreciate it very much. Thank you. Next on the rundown, another point of view on the debate last night. Then Frank Luntz pulled a couple of key moments from the exposition. Continuing now with our lead story, analyzing last night's debate in Las Vegas. Joining us from Washington, David Goodfriend, former Deputy Staff Secretary to President Bill Clinton, now a faculty member at Georgetown Law School. All right, Counsel, you heard the bloviating from me and the talking points and my discussion with the congressman. Where do you depart from our analysis?
Well, I agree with most of your analysis, Bill. I just think that the one thing we have to point out is that going into this debate, Donald Trump had a very bad few weeks and was losing in major polling results. His task was to earn more votes from people who were turning away from him, and I don't believe he succeeded in doing that. But I will say this, if there was one hero to me last night, it was your colleague from Fox News, Chris Wallace.
Yeah, we got Goldberg on him coming up. But Trump,
he was great. He was really good.
I thought he was. Look, Wallace a pro. You know, if anybody can do it, he can do it.
Agreed.
But Trump, you know, he managed to swat away the scandal questions. I thought he did that fairly effectively, swatted them away. Then he said the phrase "bad hombre." All right, and now some people are very offended by the phrase bad hombre. Now, I would not have used that phrase. I would have said muy malo hombre. All right. Now, isn't enough with this demonizing it? I mean, bad hombre now isn't enough.
Hey, look, let me answer your question this way so we can keep this to the substance, okay? I was just down in Arizona working on the campaign, and I learned something really eye-opening to me. Arizonans, whether they're Latino or Anglo or anything else, they're really familiar with immigration. They live it every day. And so these sort of jingoistic statements, they don't really sell in Arizona. And the one thing that Arizonans really believe, Republicans especially, is you look at Senator Flake from Arizona, a Republican, Senator McCain from Arizona, a Republican. What they recommend is border security first, and then E-Verify among employers, and then pathway to citizenship. It's pretty much what the Senate compromise bill was from a few years ago. And that is where I think we ought to be focusing an intelligent discussion about immigration.
But you have to understand something. And when you said you were working on a campaign, you were working on the Clinton campaign. And Clinton and Trump are competing in Arizona. That state's in play when it usually isn't. So there's something going on. But what how he won the nomination was mobilizing this anger, all right, about the chaos, about the illegal immigration chaos. And it is chaos. There's no doubt about it. Since Ronald Reagan's amnesty, it has been chaos. And the government cannot fix it for whatever reason. The Trump comes in as a strong man and says, I'm going to fix it. That has a lot of appeal to people still to this day.
Well, I would maintain, Bill, that the real appeal, and frankly, people on my side should be careful not to just dismiss this out of hand. It's the economic insecurity that working class Americans feel. And I think it's kind of bad that Trump has vilified a group of people instead of focusing where I think he's strongest. And frankly,
but I don't see the vilification.
He becomes his own worst enemy.
Look, I know Trump for a long
look at
time.
Manufacturing.
He employs a lot of Hispanic Americans. I've never heard him say a bad thing. Now I'm not hanging around him 24/7. But I thought that was so overblown because I did the interview with him when he said the rapist, the Mexican rape, and he was clearly referring to the people who smuggle other people into this country and who we all know abuse those poor migrants coming up from Central America and southern Mexico. He doesn't articulate well. And then when you confront him, he doesn't apologize or re-explain it well. And so it becomes lore, it becomes myth. But last night I thought Trump, with the exception of the rig thing, held his own. But I do believe that Hillary Clinton will come out on the polls in the next few days on top. Last word.
Well, I tend to agree with that. I really hope, though, looking at the next day after Election Day, that I can come on the show and you and I can have a conversation and we can bring back some civil discourse to the country. We need that right now.
We've always had civil discourse on this program. Not always, but I'd say 80% of the time. But you're welcome anytime, Counsel. We appreciate it. Campaign 2016 segment tonight, the best moments from the debate last night. Our pal Frank Luntz polled 26 undecided voters in Vegas with his electronic gizmo, whatever that thing is. We begin with Donald Trump's strongest statement.
The problem is you talk, but you don't get anything done, Hillary. You don't. Just like when you ran the State Department, $6 billion was missing. How do you miss $6 billion? You ran the State Department. $6 billion was either stolen. They don't know. It's gone. $6 billion. If you become president, this country is going to be in some mess, believe me.
All right, so we lost the Trump supporters. They were somewhere by Saturn. They were actually off the screen. Joining us now from San Francisco is Frank Luntz. So why did that come out on top?
Because it's accountability, in a word. The American people are so desperate to hold the Washington politicians accountable, and Donald Trump gave a specific number. Now, Bill, let's be candid. There have been fact checkers who have challenged what Trump has said. But even if it was $3 billion, $2 billion, whatever number it was, the idea that the State Department would waste hard-earned taxpayer dollars, that's always a winner for whatever candidate is willing to bring it up.
You know, when he said that, I didn't know what he was talking about. So I did a research, and it's basically there is $6 billion that was on the State Department sheet that they can't really account for. They don't know whether it's in projects or that it is somewhere else and it might come back. So it's a chaotic accounting system. But Hillary Clinton was in charge of the State Department, so I think it was valid. But he was fed that by his guys, and she never replied. But that's the weakness on Trump. He ought to say, where's the $6 billion, Hillary? Where is it? Where is it? Let her answer that. But anyway, he did well with it. Go ahead.
And before you go on, it's that he challenged her. Bill, if he would have asked her questions all throughout that 90 minutes, he would have been much more effective.
Yes, because he made the statements, but then he go, well, where is it, Hillary? Tell us where it is. What do you mean? Okay, exactly. Here's Hillary Clinton's strongest statement. Go.
That is not the way our democracy works. We've been around for 240 years. We've had free and fair elections. We've accepted the outcomes when we may not have liked them. And that is what must be expected of anyone standing on a debate stage during a general election.
And that's the rigged business. Now, just explain real fast before we get to that. People are hooked up to this machine. Is that how you do it?
They're using a dial about the size of this phone, and they turn it up or down based on whether they agree
like
or disagree.
Or don't like it. Okay.
And based on whether they want this to be for the next president of the United States. So they're reacting. Is this what they want the next president of the United States to say?
It's a little dial thing that they have control of. Okay. So why did that work for Secretary Clinton?
Because the public believes that elections are, for the most part, fair, and they believe that candidates should accept when they win and when they lose. Donald Trump made the single biggest error of that debate by not saying to Chris Wallace, I will accept the outcome. Now, it's true, Bill, that there are millions of people who now believe that the system is rigged because they're listening to Donald Trump and they're responding to it. And to some extent, the press bias and the way the system has worked, no one's been talking about her emails, no one's been talking about the foundation. I get all that. But the public is saying, if you lose the election, accept the loss.
Yeah, we don't want chaos because it was so painful in 2000. Trump clarified himself today in Ohio in a speech. We played a clip earlier in the program. Will that mitigate it?
No, because 60 million people watched it, and only a few million will see that clip. Your opportunities during this debate. Bill, it is now set. The pie is baked. And it will be very hard to change the direction of the campaign from this point forward. Okay, so we put Hillary Clinton's lead at 6. But remember, Ronald Reagan was behind by that amount. A letter writer, I'm going to read that letter in a few moments, and won pretty big. Right, but he did so because the final debate was the Thursday before the election.
Yes.
And there is no final debate here. The final debate has already happened, so you don't have the catalyst to climb 9 points in 6 days.
Do you have a scandal potential, though, with WikiLeaks? They may be holding something back. Pure speculation.
Absolutely you do, but that would also require Donald Trump to let it play itself out. And the problem with Trump is that he always seems to interrupt the narrative of the story as it's happening. If Donald Trump were actually to go away for 2 or 3 days and let it play out, then the secretary, Hillary Clinton, would be in deep trouble. Well, but he hasn't been able to do that.
I don't know if the press had even covered it at this point, but we'll see. Frank, thank you. Plenty more Heads of Factor moves along this evening. Bernie Goldberg has some thoughts about how Chris Wallace handled the debate. Weekdays the Bernie segment tonight, as everybody knows, Chris Wallace moderated the debate last night. It was no easy assignment.
But Hillary Clinton wanted the wall.
Well, we
are a country of laws. And by the way,
no, wait. I'd like to hear from. I'd like to hear from Secretary Clinton.
Excuse me. Putin has
Mr. Trump,
outsmarted her in Syria.
Trump,
He's outsmarted her every step of the way.
I do get to ask some questions.
Yes, that's fine.
Joining us now from North Carolina, Bernie Goldberg. So let's give Wallace a grade here, Bernie. You first.
I give him an A+.
Wow.
I thought an A+. I thought the questions were good questions. They were focused and relevant. He, very importantly, did not make himself the story, and he was fair and balanced. But don't take my word for it. Let's go to the Bible that liberals go to get their guidance. I will read you one sentence from that Bible, the New York Times. Mr. Wallace mixed humor with scolding and persistence with patience to guide his charges toward the most substantive encounter of an unusually vicious election. I agree.
Okay. I'm not going to give you my grade because I got Wallace on tomorrow. And so I'm going to give him the grade face-to-face like any good teacher would do. But I thought that, Wallace, people don't understand watching how difficult it is, particularly when you're that far away. See, I can control this program pretty well because the guests in the studio are like literally 2 feet from me. And on the satellite, I can cut your mic and then make fun of you, but I could just cut your mic off. But there, he couldn't do anything. And if they wanted to keep talking, which both of them did, all right, both of them yammered through his questions, there's nothing he can do about it. I mean, unless he throws something at them. But so I thought he did pretty well, and he got a lot in the 90 minutes. They got a lot of subjects in. The one thing that I would do that Wallace didn't do, and I want your opinion on this, is that if somebody says something like Hillary Clinton did, well, it's only about economics, the open border, or it's only about energy. That's what he said. It's only about energy, open border. I would say clearly it isn't, Madam Secretary, and then I would read the quote.
I do agree with you on that. As a matter of fact, when she said last night that her dream, her word of open borders was about energy, I was live tweeting during the debate, and I said, really, who knew that?
But that's not what she said in that speech to the bankers. We have the words.
But come on, I have a dream of open borders for energy? No, it's for people.
Right.
I mean, I guess he could have said, as you know, I don't like second-guessing people who do live television, but I guess he could have said, Mrs. Clinton, come on, really? But that's a minor pick. I give him an A+.
All right. Now, do you think that Wallace was too tough on Trump when he brought up the rigged business and are you going to respect the election results? Was that a fair question? Was he too tough?
No, he wasn't too tough. That was a great question. And predictably, even if Trump supporters don't care that he said, I can't automatically tell you right now that I'm going to support the results, and nothing he says or does is going to matter to his most loyal acolytes. But it was important because I think it sank whatever small chances he still had. But he did it for a reason. He did it for a reason. Donald Trump's massive ego will not let him accept the idea that he might lose unless the system is rigged, unless the fix is in. So if the fix is in, of course he can't automatically accept the results. It's a circular argument.
Yeah,
it's
but you're being a psychologist now. You're analyzing him because you don't have any basis in fact for
this. Here's a political analysis then. If Donald Trump winds up hemming and hawing and not supporting enthusiastically, or at least as enthusiastically as a loser can support the result, if he can't support the result in 2016, what do you think his most passionate supporters are going to do in 2020? You think they're going to hop on board the Republican bandwagon? Because I don't.
It depends on who the person is. But anyway, Trump today clarified, but as we said in the talking points memo, in the court of public opinion didn't do him any good. Bernie Goldberg, everybody. When we come right back, it will be Miller time. Of course, we'll talk about presidential politics with the D-Man. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Miller Time segment tonight. The sage of Southern California is right here in New York City. Does de Blasio know, Miller? Does de Blasio know you're here?
He reminds me of Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble together, doesn't he? He's got that big doofus thing happening.
Isn't the city falling apart? Is what I'm saying true?
It just took me 60 minutes to get up 6th Avenue from the Village.
It's like, you guys ever see the movie Escape from New York?
Yeah.
De Blasio is really Snake Plissken. I mean, you just put him an eye patch, the whole city is destroyed.
Hey, you look at the crime rates here, he's blind in both eyes. I'm like Snake.
Now you're just back from Africa. You were over in Africa for a while.
By the way, good to see Frank Luntz. You ever notice Frank, every time he's talking about something, he brings it back to pie. You know, like it's always baked into the pie.
Frank likes pie. Okay,
it's like Frank Lunch.
Now, do you even have time to pay attention to presidential? You're traveling all over the place.
Billy, I didn't see one of the debates. I missed
nothing?
all three, and you know, it's great. I was out in Africa. I was out on safari, and then last night I got in to New York from over there, and I was wiped out. I went to bed at 8:30, and it's great for me because I cannot watch Hillary Rodham Clinton without feeling like I'm going to spontaneously human combust. So the fact that I missed all three, but I did read up on it today, and you know, I don't find it the end of the world when Trump says that. I know, you know, that everybody's freaking out now, but. Honest to God, Bill, it seems like we don't have any memory now. Didn't Gore just do this? Didn't Gore?
Gore was after the fact, though. He didn't set it up that way. That's what the outcry is. I mean, look, Trump is Trump, and whatever he says, I don't get real up or down on it. But he just gives the enemy, 80% of the media, the enemy, just a hammer, just a pawn him.
You remember Mitt Romney was the opposite of Trump. Would you not to say the two men could not be more opposite in the way they approach it?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Do you remember them wading into Mitt Romney?
A little, but not like this. I mean, if you look at the Trump coverage, it's savage.
Well,
Romney, they didn't like him, and he was the rich guy who didn't care about anybody. But boy, Trump, they take him apart.
Billy, do you think this election even matters? I mean, I know people say it's. I think it's. You know, we've been out on the road. I think the ship has sailed.
Well, maybe the ship has sailed. But the Supreme Court, all right, is very, very important. I mean, I was shocked last night when Hillary Clinton actually said to everybody, you know what? You can kill the unborn up until the minute they're born if there's a problem with the mother's health. I mean, you know what that is. You know what that guy Tiller was doing out in Kansas. Yeah. I mean, and what the guy Gosnell was doing in Philadelphia.
Now listen, the left believes in cradle-to-grave entitlement. They just make it hard to get to the cradle.
But here's the look. 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton could never have said that. That would have caused all kinds of outrage.
Well, that's what I mean when I say the ship has sailed, Bill. You remember when that Martin, whatever his name was, O'Malley, apologized for saying all lives matter? We've just given $150 billion in unmarked bills to Iran, for God's sakes. 33,000 emails. Like taken away, and people say Comey's a fair man. They're firebombing people they don't agree with. We have malevolent do-gooders now firebombing deplorables because they think they're righteous and right. It's gone. I
think it can come back, but not if the Supreme Court gets two more Ruth.
I think it's like Lord of the Flies, Billy. One side or the other has the conch shell. They've got the conch now, and I expect my skull to be beaten in by it. They play rough over there.
You're going to vote.
I'll vote because of the troops.
Yeah, you got to vote.
Anytime any kid goes across the world and fights for me in some hellhole, of course you go out and vote. But do I think the ship has sailed? Yeah, I do. The logs in the flume. Like I've told you before, I feel like an expatriate living in a foreign country that used to be my own country, and I'm going to lock a grin on. When in the gloaming, do as the gloamers do.
I don't really know what that means, but it sounds
it's
really
like when
good.
in Rome, do as Romans do. Yeah. We're in the gloaming. The sunset. It's not what it used to be.
Dr. Tip today, extreme politics in a moment, but first we would like to remind you get a lot of free stuff on BillO'Reilly.com. If you become a premium member, you get any one of my books free of charge, including the new one, Killing the Rising Sun, free copy of Elise Wheel's brand new book, The Candidate, and a copy of the Constitution, 3 freebies for a very moderate membership price. What more can we do for you? All the money I get from BillO'Reilly.com is donated to charity. Now the mail, Sandra Labibia, Windsor, Connecticut. It is obvious Hillary received the questions before the debate. How could she know facts from 25 years ago? She did not get the questions, Sandra. She memorized answers and then applied them when she wanted. Kenneth Codger, Avon Lake, Ohio. Chris Wallace was unfair to Trump. He let Hillary talk twice as long. Mrs. Clinton spoke 6 minutes longer than Mr. Trump. Might be because she was windier. Trump was concise last night. Britt Monteleone, Hammond, Louisiana. I feel Chris Wallace did a stellar job. It was unfair to ask if Trump would accept the election results. Why, Britt? Mr. Trump brought the rigging thing up himself. Question had to be asked. Alan Fernandez, Kellyville, Australia. Hillary was declared the winner here. Is our press corrupt? Left-leaning, certainly, Alan. I would never call it corrupt. Jason Warren, Troy, Alabama. Reagan was down in the polls by 6 points to Carter 2 weeks before the election. He won by 10 points. And as we pointed out, it's an excellent observation. The debate in 1980, they only had one, turned it around for Reagan, Jason. Paul Atkins, Singapore. I am watching the factor and the decline of America over here. I used to say, God bless America. Now I just hope he will save it. Helen Banks, San Antonio, Texas. Bill, do you know if Hillary had notes in front of her? Debaters are allowed to take notes during the event, but not bring anything in. No cheat sheets. Jack Smart, Irvine, California. O'Reilly just finished Killing the Rising Sun. All 6 Killing books have been exceptional. Rising Sun is the best. Well, I appreciate that, Jack. Very happy that Killing the Rising Sun maintains its #1 position, nonfiction, after 6 weeks in the marketplace. Thank you all. And a very happy 104th birthday to Effie Sutterfield, celebrating in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Way to go, Effie. And finally tonight, the factor tip of the day. I've been doing this program for 20 years, and I think I know my audience, you guys. About 90% of you are patriots who are very interested in finding out the truth. But there are some viewers who don't want to know the truth. They only want their ideological beliefs reinforced. Let me give you an example. Jack in South Carolina emailed me this. We were ardent Fox fans until last evening. Chris Wallace was the most liberal moderator of the 3. He allowed Hillary to talk incessantly while denying Trump the same advantage. Now, Jack, you're entitled to your opinion on how Chris Wallace conducted the debate. There's no problem with that. But to call Chris the most liberal moderator in the 3 debates is off the chart. Is it not? So here's the tip. When you find yourself getting emotional about something, pull it back. When you find yourself getting too involved with partisan politics, pull it back. Clear thinking is the key to a productive and happy life. Tip of the day. And that is it for us tonight. Please check out the Fox News Factor website, different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, we'd like you to spout out about Factor anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name and town if you wish to opine. Word of the day, do not be sophistic. Not sophisticated. Sophistic when writing to the Factor. Now, I had to put this thing on. I guarantee you I will spill stuff on this tux. I guarantee it. Tomorrow I will report, eyewitness report. I'm going to be at the Al Smith dinner. Tell you what went on and all that. We'll have a good time mocking everyone. Chris Wallace will be here tomorrow. I have some questions about his debate moderation. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Please always remember that the spin stops here. We're definitely looking out for you.